Take it away, Jen.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are going to be talking about leadership style today. So those of you who had a chance to do the assessment in advance, you have a slight leg up. And those of you didn't, don't worry, we're going to be covering all of that. But for those of you who are new to Ama Vida, just a really kind of quick overview of who we are. So Ama Vida is a female-founded company out of Chicago, where Jill is located. I'm actually in Houston, Texas. And when we think about all the different coaching we provide, of course, there's leadership, career, life, and health. But when we think about leadership, we have the slogan, great leaders aren't born, they're made. And we really, truly believe that if you do the right amount of training, reading, coaching, fill in the blank, sort of all of this stuff together, that you can truly shape and form yourself into the great leader that you're meant to be. We really help clients to, what we say, elevate their leadership to the next level. And we literally have a program called Elevate. Leadership program is called Elevate, in order to love their lives, and not only love their own lives, but to be loving their life and their job so much that they can develop, foster, and grow teams below them as well. So it really is still all about that name, Ama Vida, love your life. But really, as a leader, it's for yourself, it's for your team, it's for kind of a combination of everything. So I would love to just see in the chat real quick, how many of you just say like, yes, I know Ama Vida, or no, this is the first time I've come to an Ama Vida event. Just give me like a quick yes or no in the chat. I do have it up on my screen, so I will see your responses. Oh, cool, a couple first, yay. Oh, and then some regulars, good. Okay, good, so it's good to just kind of know who's here, so that's fabulous. So we might have a nice little mix today, that'll be fun. Yay, it's great to see some first, so welcome. Who am I? I'm Jen. I'm actually Director of Leadership Solutions, and I'm one of the executive leadership coaches here at Ama Vida. Excuse me. Why are you listening to me today? Always a great question. I have been working in this field for admittedly far too long. I don't even like to start counting the age and the years anymore, because I'm getting a little bit up there. My birthday's coming up next week, and I'm not looking forward to thinking about how much older I've gotten so quickly. But I have really spanned in my career a lot of great opportunities that have allowed me to become well-rounded to be able to have this conversation with you today. So I worked at Boeing for a number of years. I've been in a first level and second level manager role. I've been fortunate enough to also work in talent development, recruitment, and bringing in some sort of high potential people going through high potential programs. And with that, getting a slew of training in both coaching and leadership development, started my own business, traveled a lot, and then here I am now at the wonderful Ama Vida. So all of those years kind of come together to bring not only great leadership, but also this ability to coach people from these sort of dynamic environments. So although I personally don't do a ton of coaching anymore, I really love getting together and talking to all of you about it. So that's who I am and why I am here today. But I want to hear where everyone's from. We got a little bit of that in the chat already. First of all, are you working from home? Are you working in an office right now? Just kind of curious, who's working from home and who's working in the office? Because we're starting to see where people are transitioning back. And I just sort of curious, like, where people are at right now. Okay, so getting some homes. Okay, office, mix, hybrid. We're seeing a lot of that hybrid for sure. Okay, yeah, see another one. We're getting a pretty good mix. Office, frowny face. Oh, Kendra, I feel you. Hybrid, office, still at home. Okay, good mix. Okay, now how about city, state? Where are you from? I already seen like, holy cow, we're all over the world today. We've got Ontario. I know I saw somewhere else earlier. Now, of course, I can't remember. Seattle, California, cool. I'm in Houston, Texas. Jill's in Chicago. Even our coaches are spread out all over. We have coaches in California, New Jersey. We really are kind of all over the place. Illinois, Nebraska, cool. Okay, wonderful. This is great. Okay, and then I just would love to hear, where do you work? What companies are all of you from, if you're comfortable sharing that? And it's okay if you're an entrepreneur or something as well, but drop that out there too. Just kind of curious. I used to work at Boeing prior, actually worked at REI for a little while too. That was a whole nother kind of crazy stint in my life as well. Okay, cool. Okay, a little bit of a mix. This is really cool. Nonprofit, we see that a lot too. Ooh, dental practice, very cool. Okay, awesome. Okay. Contractor at Microsoft. Very cool. Congrats, Morgan. That's exciting. Okay, great. So this is fabulous. We've got this like really great mix of folks who are here. Hopefully that will make the conversation a little more exciting. So if any of you are clients, please just drop a thing and say, yes, I'm a client, and shout out who your coach is so we know. I didn't see a number of familiar names, so there might not be any here today, which is kind of cool too. So, but if you are, drop that out. And then for those of you who you kind of listed out some of your companies, this is just sort of an ask. I get more curious. How many of you know if your company provides personal development budget? I know Verizon does. Oh, yay! There's a Kate. There's a Peggy. Okay. If your company provides personal development budget, just kind of put in there. Just sort of curious, because we get a mix of that too. And some people will say, "Gosh, I don't know," which hopefully will prompt them to think about going and talking about it. Okay, cool. So Nicole, you even know how much yours is. Nicole, I'm impressed. Not everybody even has a clue what theirs is. They might go, yeah, I think I do, but I don't know what it is. So cool. Okay, good. So this is just good information to know. This will help us to tailor the conversation we're having today. And just to know that there's such a mix of individuals here too. Yeah, Tiffany, I have no idea. I know that's 99% of the time. There you go. There's an action for you to write down of something to go figure out later. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to do some really brief logistics, although we've touched on some of them already. We're going to dive into what is a leadership style. We're going to talk about finding your leadership style, which will also really be just talking about the leadership style you have, because many of you have done the assessment before, so that will blend and merge together. We'll talk a little bit about additional support for you, and then we'll leave that time for Q&A at the end. Okay, so, but the last question, I promise I'll stop asking you all these type in the chat questions, but I'm just curious, knowing that you knew we were going to be talking about leadership styles today, what was it that you want to get out of the session today? And there, I have a reason for asking this. I'm not just like collecting information. I can tailor this conversation very easily to go wherever we want to go. So if most people have filled out the assessment and they want to get a little deeper, we can do that. So if you have or had some sort of intention when you join today of something that you want to get out of this conversation, something you want to learn, whatever it might be, please do type that in the chat, because I can have that top of mind as we're going through the conversation. So far I see no responses. So I'm taking that means we're just here for any reason, type of thing. So if you've got something, drop it in there just so I know. Okay, increase self-awareness, tactical takeaways to improve. Oh, that's good. Confidence, boundaries with people who also live in the same community. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, good. Some specifics. Learn to be a better leader with purpose and able to share vision. Okay, good. Okay. Adapting styles to circumstances. Yeah, Linda, that's a good one too. Delegating without guilt. Oh, Hannah, we could talk for hours on that. Leveraging leadership style for max results. Okay, these are great. Thank you for all of this. We will do our best to make sure we touch on as much of this as humanly possible as we go through the content today. Okay, so this is being recorded. Be present, take notes, share in the chat, ask questions if you have them. Even if we don't get to them till the end, we will do our best to answer them. And if there's a flood of questions for some reason, I'll answer them offline, so no worries there. Attend more events. This is the quick short link, the bit.ly to go in and register for more events. I talked about getting that, whether your company sponsors career development. Those of you who didn't know, think about maybe asking for that. Is there an opportunity for you to get some funding to support your continued growth and development? And I'm going to be talking about this a little bit later too, but if you already know, like if you're someone who's here, has been here a while, and you're like, actually, I know I'm interested in hearing more about leadership coaching or working with a leadership coach, you're welcome to schedule a leadership consult anytime with one of our experts who will match you with the right coach. And that is the link right there. I'll flash it up on the screen again later. It's not the full intent of our conversation today, but if you kind of came in and you knew that already, there's a link if you want to go ahead and take care of that. Okay, so first, what makes a leader great? We're going to talk about two very specific styles here that we have put into our Ama Vita assessment. If you took it, you saw at least one. You may not have exposure to what both of them are, but I'm really kind of curious. What do you think makes a leader great? Have you seen great leaders in the past and you emulate that behavior and that's what makes a great leader? Or is there more to it than that? I'm getting a little background noise. If you're not on mute, can you go ahead and mute, please? Thank you. Okay, so what makes a great leader? Anyone have anything specific that they want to kind of share and drop in there? So being seen as competent in an environment where I'm the only woman of color and have a master's degree and tons of experience. Carmen, I'm not sure if that was to the last question or this one. Either way, message received, message heard, okay? So Hannah says empathy makes a great leader. That's true. Yeah, especially these days in the COVID world that we're in. Resilience was something that we keep hearing a lot about over the last 2020 in the pandemic time. So is resilience still a thing? Maybe. Motivate, does that mean motivate others, motivate self? Probably a combination of both. How to get the best results from your team. So optimize and maximize your team for success, for sure. Authenticity and vulnerability. Vulnerability is probably one of my favorite things to talk about these days. I'm not sure if we've done a training on vulnerability yet. It's in the hopper, it's on the books. But authenticity for sure, coupled with vulnerability, that ability to really lean in and have the tough conversation, ability to empathize, desire to be understood. Oh, desire to be understood. There's so much great, we've done events in the past, we can go dig those up, but around listening to be heard and understood, not just heard, right? So it's like someone might have heard what you said, but did they like really, really listen and understand what you said? I'm hosting an event tomorrow on that topic. If anybody is interested in, if you have not registered and you're interested in the link to it, just email me afterwards, because it's not through Ama La Vida, it's through something else. So I can send you the link on listening to be heard and understood. Okay, relatable, inspiring, values for individuals is trustworthy, psychological safety, yes, 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 so important, advocates for team transparency. So I'm seeing a lot of really great things here. And what I'm noticing, this is not 100% true, but what I am noticing stands out a lot here to me is one of the two styles that we're going to cover, which is that people first leader. That people first leader is typically very, very draws attention to that empathy, being there for the people, developing the team. By the way, if I hadn't mentioned this before, there is no right or wrong to either of these, and they really, you want a blend of both, and we'll get into that. But that people first is a lot of what we're seeing here. So the other leadership style, and we're going to get in these details in a second, but the other one we have, and some of you, I'll have to ask you which ones you were, but some of you may have come up with, I am a get shit done leader. So those are the executors, right? Or like really focused on execution. Now, it does not mean if you're executing, you don't care about the people. It does not mean if you care about the people, you can't get stuff done. That is absolutely not the case, but we all have tendencies, right? Where we lean one direction or the other. So for those of you who have taken the leadership style assessment and you remember, were you a people first or get shit done? So PF, GSD, just drop that in the chat. So we can kind of see again if we have, a little bit of a mix of what we've got. Okay, so we're getting a mix so far. Oh, cool. Okay, good. I'm always amazed how it has a tendency to be a little bit 50-50-ish when we ask these questions. Like, I don't know how that happens, but it's always a little bit of a mix. Okay, good. Now, we'll get into this, but anyone who did complete it, when you got your results, did you disagree? Did you read it and go, oh no, that is so not me? If that's the case, then if you're presenting from Google Slides, can you turn on the closed captioning? Oh my gosh, I'm not presenting from Google Slides. I'm presenting from Canva. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. I thought I would ask. Sorry,
No,
I apologize.
That's a great question, Jill. And remind me when we get off, and I will make sure we do that next time, because I have the ability to start doing that and it is in my plan. So thank you for the question, Jill. No, good question. We will have closed captioning next time, everyone. Although I question how well it will catch my very rapid voice. This will be a good lesson for me to slow down. The get shit doneer in me likes to speak really fast and really go for it. So there's a good blind spot and challenge for me right there. Okay, Hannah didn't agree. I was really surprised. Okay, good. One part I disagreed with. Good. No, I think it's a good mix. Morgan, if you had trouble getting it, let me know. Send me an email afterwards, Jennifer@alvcoaching.com, and I will just forward it to you. Super easy, no big deal. Okay, so we're going to go into the details. So some of you have seen some of this, some of you haven't. That first one is get shit done. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, not preferable to be one direction or the other. But this person, their strengths tend to be things like provides clear direction, holds the team accountable, delegates hopefully pretty well, gives and receives feedback, two-way communication, probably a little bit more confident within taking risks, and possibly more confident within just their skills in general. Okay, so you may not necessarily be one or all of these. There could be things where it's like, yeah, I resonate with everything but this one or something. These are just the tendencies to lean toward. And this is, you got to think about it from this way with the two styles. We're really trying to polarize a little bit so that we can draw out very specific strengths and blind spots for individuals to be focused on. So there's a good chance that you can have a couple things that maybe don't resonate. But The blind spots for the GSD leader might be things like they could lack some emotional intelligence. I mean, how many of you have had a peer that you worked with who was just like super, super confident, kind of, they thought they knew everything, and it started to come off in the emotional intelligence piece as well, or like they sort of lacking that self-awareness. Maybe they're the armchair quarterback, like kind of, or the backseat driver, right? Trying to lead everyone around and not really recognizing, not reading the room and recognizing that's not necessarily needed or wanted. So that can kind of happen a lot. Some other blind spots for the GSD is maybe they're a little heavy on company first. So that just might mean that they're so focused on goals and objectives that they're forgetting about the people aspect, and that at the end of the day, the people are the ones that, you know, do the work to get things done. So trying to like draw that connection between the two can be really helpful or important. Directive. So I am this, Jill could probably unmute and give stories, I'm sure, but I am very directive. And sometimes that communication can come off harsh, right? So I have to, not only be clear that my team knows I speak in bullet points. I'm very clear and I'm very direct. If it feels a little intimidating, it's okay to call me out and be like, whoa, Jen, you're being a little direct here, like slow your roll. So, but at the same time, I also know like I need to soften it a little bit sometimes. I need to come in with a, hey, how's it going before I dive in, right? So those are the things that I work on in my blind spots. And of course, I'm using myself today as an example, but you get the perspective. Okay, so we're going to skip on to the next one. But for those of you who were the GSD, what would you say is the one strength that you know is a strength of yours, but you could maybe leverage or maximize more? You could do more of, like, man, you know what? I know that I have this ability to take risks, but I don't do enough of it. I need to take more risk. I delegate a little. I should really delegate a lot more, you know, this type of thing. So what would be some of those strengths for the GSDers that jumped out for you? And then conversely, and while you're thinking about that, maybe reflecting and writing some of this down, you can drop it in the chat if you would like. Same thing with the blind spots. Which of these blind spots resonate for you? And one thing I will say is if you kind of go, lacks emotional intelligence, I don't know. That might mean it's a little bit of a blind spot. Sometimes just not knowing a lot about it tends to tell us that it could be a blind spot. It doesn't necessarily mean you're bad at it. It just means there's an opportunity to learn and figure out, what does this mean for me? How can I use this better with my team? You know, this type of thing. Okay. So if you haven't yet, sort of write those things down and be thinking about, what are these skills do I need to leverage more? And what are these skills do I need to focus and develop a little bit more? All right. So the next one is the people first. And same idea. We're going to walk through to this sort of high level and have conversation around it. So those people first leaders have a tendency to be servant leaders, right? Really there for others, to serve others. Have probably a bit of a coaching mindset. So active listener, like that piece down below, but also like really great deep questions. They're just genuinely curious about their teams and those around them. And they use that information to make decisions and move forward. Highly empathetic, maybe even to a fault. Like that really could probably be a blind spot as well sometimes. Those of you who are empathetic, is it the right balance? Are you meeting in the middle, or are you being pulled so much into someone else that it's dragging you down and preventing you from being able to do things too? So empathy is probably one that could go on a blind spot if it's overly empathetic for some of these individuals. I already mentioned that active listening, but still, thinking of that true, like if you don't know what that is, really thinking of that as a tool to your advantage, in that you are summarizing what individuals are saying, you're paraphrasing what they're saying. What I heard you say was, so that they feel heard, right? Repeating some of that back, checking for understanding, making sure you're understanding the message that's being communicated. You're not being that GSDer where it's like, yeah, I heard you. And then you're off running to the races trying to execute and solve the problem before you really got to the root of what is going on, right? So now, as I'm saying some of this, you're probably even seeing like how these things can merge together and how that blend of the two really, truly can be ideal and perfect. The people first leader really values one-on-one time. Again, I say to a fault, because if they're a heavy people first leader, they might even have too many one-on-one meetings and they can't get anything done on their calendar because they're so busy meeting with their people. That's where those kind of blind spots come in, and that growth mindset. So really always thinking about growing the team, growing themselves across the board. Now, blind spots for people first leader, I've mentioned like a couple areas where a strength could be a weakness. So I've mentioned that, but some other things that come up might be things like imposter syndrome. These folks who are so people minded have a tendency to sometimes feel like, wow, there's Jen, the GSDer who's out there executing and getting all this stuff done and meeting company goals. And maybe like, oh, I wish I was like Jen. Well, and they're two different people, right? Like the comparison shouldn't be there. And just because you're not executing the same way does not mean that you aren't achieving possibly even more, right? So it's just a matter of what is that? How are you feeling that imposter syndrome, and how can you move yourself, your competence up and match that with your confidence so that you're back in that sort of perfect funnel and you're not feeling like you don't have the competence to do the job when in reality you most likely do. Okay. Follow through. Sometimes it's like with the accountability as well. We're so busy just thinking about the people. We don't get as concerned with, oh yeah, they said they'll get it done in a couple of weeks. It'll come back, and then we kind of neglect, and then months go by. Oh shoot, we forgot to do that thing, right? So follow through can be a little bit of a problem, which same thing with the execution. Overwhelm is one that we see a lot in these people first leaders, overwhelm / burnout for sure, where we're just so focused on our great people and we're just really putting so much energy towards our people, and maybe our empathy string is even being pulled too much, that as the tasks and the things that really do need to get done get pulled in, we freeze a little bit and whoa, there's too much to do, there's too much on our plate, I can't do it all, type of thing. So the people first leaders have a tendency to feel a little bit more of that overwhelm and burnout, though I will say all of us feel that depending on where we are, what's going on, and what job we're in. So okay, so Katie, thank you. I rated as a GSD, but seeing a lot of myself in the people first traits too. Very common. And Katie, I'd be another person I'd offer, if you shoot me an email, I'll send you your breakdown, your full breakdown of your results, and we can kind of see the comparison of the two points wise, because what I see a lot is it's really close to tied for a lot of individuals. And ideally, we want that kind of mix of both. Again, I know I keep harping on this, but that admired leader, that ideal leader. Think about those individuals that who are just like, you're like, wow, that person is great. They most likely have this kind of really good combination of both of these things. And it doesn't mean they don't have blind spots. They might have pieces from both of them, or maybe even all the things that were here on some level, and that they have to kind of continue to work on. But that blend of all is essentially the ideal and what we want to work ourselves to. So if you're the GSD leader, the questions to be asking yourself, and I'm going to flip back just one slide, might be some of the things like, okay, so these are my strengths, these are things that I can leverage, but how can I put more of these people first things in my life? How can I be a little bit more servant? How can I adopt a coaching mindset? How can I bring a little bit more empathy? And sometimes the GSDs are like, oh, empathy, that's a scary word. Like vulnerability, like, oh, that's a scary word, right? So what are some of these things that I know are important leadership skills that I know I do not have to the best of their ability, right? And how can I make myself a great leader by adopting some of those things? So you may not have a simplistic answer and like, oh yeah, done. I need to be more empathetic. Got it. I'll do it. Like, this is why people work with leadership coaches, because it is not an easy thing to do. And it's a process of both learning, looking deep, reflecting as to what you're doing, practicing very specific tactics with individuals around you, looking into the mirror, reflecting on what's working and what's not, and then creating really good habits around all of these things. And I would argue conversely, like even the things you're really great at, there's some work that has to be done to maintain those too. You could be empathetic now, and then you get so taxed and overwhelmed that you lose your empathy, for example. So how do you make sure that you're balancing all those things even for yourself? So then opposite sort of question that I was just mentioning was, if you're a people first leader and these things resonate with you, what would it look like for you to get some of these skills in your life? What would it look like for you to delegate a little bit better and at a deeper level, and the right projects in the right way that actually provide you, that covering of that blind spot of overwhelm, so free up time and allow you to not feel as overwhelmed? What would that look like? What would it look like to give and receive feedback in such a healthy way that it really grows your teams and your people and allows them to be a little bit more empowered so that you're not feeling like you're kind of having to do a little bit of everything for them all the time? Or, sometimes we, as people first leaders, sometimes we come a little bit micromanagery, not intentionally, not because we think people are doing things wrong, but because we feel needed, we feel wanted. They need me, they want me, they want my direction. And there may be some truth to that, but you will never grow, develop, and move that individual on if you're constantly telling them every step, telling them what to do. When they come to you with that question of, hey, I've got a problem, what should I do? And you give them the solution versus using that coaching mindset and asking questions, you're not setting them up for success. You're potentially setting them up for failure and a lot more work for you, because you're always going to be having it's a revolving door. That one-on-one time is a revolving door, and you're always having people in, and you don't have that free time on your calendar to do any execution and get things done. Okay, so I'm going to pause and take a deep breath because that was just a lot of talking from Jen. But I'm curious, we've talked about this a lot, but when we think about the two, the GSD and the people first, which is right? I've mentioned a blend of two as both, and that's, it's no secret. I'm going to reveal that, right? But do you feel so strong about your style that was identified for you that it's like, yep, nope, GSD is the one. It's the best one for sure. Do any of you feel so adamantly strong that you have the right one? Or maybe the one that you have, you wish you had the other one. I don't know. So just thinking about that, like put that out there. So if you have any thoughts on that, go ahead and drop it in the chat. But like I mentioned, I would call it like this admired leader, or this sort of ideal leader is in that middle where the two sort of intersect, where you really are both putting people first, but you're also executing and getting everything done that you need to be getting done. That's the dream world that we all want to live in. And I see those leadership style assessment results come across once in a blue moon. I would say about one every, this is going to sound weird, but probably about one every 100, there's a tie. And that's someone who has scored themselves in such a way that they're a blend of both. And there are many who are very close. So it'll be fun for those of you who do reach out to take a look and see if you were, a close blend of both of them. Okay, so I have this up as a little bit of a visual. The ADIT here is the method that we use here at Alma La Vida for coaching. And I think it's just relevant for the conversation today when we talk about ADIT, to kind of walk through really quickly what it will look like for you, because I want you to have a little bit of a what do I do before we get into some of the deeper conversation that we're going to have. So first of all, many of you have already done the assess portion, in that it's identify your strengths and blind spots. So you've done the style, go deeper. Was there anything that I shared on the other one that you resonated with more? That's okay, right? This was just to get you started. The idea of this leadership style is truly just to get you started. So if, as I'm talking and I'm sharing examples, you're like, oh gosh, delegation wasn't on my list, but that is my problem. Woo, I need that. Write that down. So make sure you have like a good list for yourself of the strengths that you really need to leverage and work on more. And then those blind spots that you need to be focused on. It is very hard for us as human beings to come up with strengths sometimes, and weaknesses too. But it's a lot easier when you say like, hey, what's a weakness? People usually come up with something immediately. But is it something that's really relevant to your growth from a leadership standpoint? How do you twist it and manipulate it so that it's a leadership skill that you actually need to be focused on? So if you're struggling with that at all, just let me know. It's something we can discuss. But for the most part, strengths are the harder ones to come up with. So this is kind of the starting point to getting you some ideas of things that maybe you are really great at that you could leverage and focus on more. Okay. The discover portion, develop key leadership skills. So the reason we make these lists of what are the important things and what are the blind spots, so that we can go back and say, in the job I'm in right now, with the team I have right now, in the way that I show up right now, what are the skills that I should be focused on? And then you can actually go and execute on something specific instead of just being really general. We get a lot of individuals who come to us for coaching who will say, I just want to be a better leader. And that's great. Luckily, we as coaches know how to dive in and dig in deeper what that means. But if that's the thought that's running through your head, you will probably never get there on your own because you need to have the specificity. So you either need the support of someone to help draw that out of you, or you need to do a lot of these sort of assessments and things. So you get a list, so you know exactly sort of, what it is that you're working on building and growing. So develop those key leadership skills, whatever those are for you. Okay, so the next one, practice. I say this because it is not as simple. Even today, you can't just come to this training and go, okay, cool, I know my style, like boom, I'm done. Like it just doesn't work that way. Even my really good trainings in like delegation, like, are you going to learn something? Yes, but it's not going to work unless you go and you practice. You take something tangible out of it and you go practice and you do something with it and execute it and transform it into something, which is the long-term habit. Okay. So I just give you that as a representation to kind of model how you can take yourself on the journey, but also, again, the ADIT is what we use as a coaching methodology here. So that's the model and the flow that we work with our clients. Identification through those assessments, really working to start developing, practicing, and then creating those long-term habits. So that's what the coaching journey essentially looks like as well. Okay, so I'm going to go through and do a little bit of sort of skimming in the chat because there's been a lot of things that said we wanted to talk about that we didn't get to yet. So I want to spend maybe 10 or so minutes kind of speaking to specific things in the beginning that we said we wanted to focus on. And I've got 2 slides in front of me here. Well, actually, I think it's 3. The GSD, the people first, this is just a repeat. And then there's kind of this last one where we sort of talk about, hey, if we're unsure, we don't know which category we fall into. There could be some things here as well. Some of you potentially might resonate with this a little bit more. If you do, it just tells me that perhaps your list of skills needs to grow a little bit more and you need to draw a little bit more focused attention very specifically to what it is that you want to develop and grow within there. And if this list resonates, screenshot that, write it down, whatever, and use that as your guide to say, these are the skills I want to start working on. Like if you're saying things in here that are bouncing out at you, that's a good indication of these would be some things specifically for you to focus on. Okay, but I'm flipping kind of back and forth as we go through some of this. So, okay, so I'm actually going to scroll up. So bear with me just one moment. If you have other questions that you want to type in the chat, please don't hesitate to do so. But I'm going to look just really quickly for the things that we said we wanted to talk a little bit about today. There's so much good conversation. It's almost difficult to find it. This is fabulous. Way to go, team. Okay, so we have, first one, interested in self-awareness and tactical takeaways to improve. Okay, so what I want to talk about first with self-awareness is a lot of it really truly does start with doing assessments like this. I mean, I know that sounds kind of silly, but anytime we do an assessment, it often gives us words for something that we just couldn't think of before. Like it attaches something, oh, that's what that means. So there's lots of cool assessments you can do out there. There's these assessments. We do ones with our clients, like we do 360 reviews. We have a bunch of different internal questionnaires to help kind of assess where you're on in your journey. But go find, you can even Google like whether it's other free leadership style assessments or something, but try to get enough information where you have words that will start to attach to what's going on. That's kind of step one. When you can kind of see a little bit better what the possibilities are, you'll have a better way to sort of draw attention to what's actually going on. Another thing I want to mention just with self-awareness, because I think this is really good with your teams. So do this exercise with your teams. Those of you who have employees, go back, send them this survey, have them get the results, come together in a staff meeting, and then have great dialogue around it. So one of the follow-ups one of the links you're gonna get in the follow-up from Jill has a blog that our CEO wrote when we did this as a team. And so it really kind of just touches on simply like kind of what the conversation looked like and just kind of will help you mimic and do something similar. But really the idea is it starts to generate conversation. So it's oh, that's why type of feeling, right? So between each other now as a team, you're drawing some self-awareness to yourself, but also they're drawing some for themselves. And we're having really good open dialogue, which is always going to be healthy for creating that psychological safe workspace and maybe opening up to some more feedback. In addition to, if we do this and you as the manager, let's say you're like me, you're a GSDer and everyone on the team is people first. I mean, wow, like what a dialogue that could have where I can say, I did not realize how different we all were. Here's what I need from you. If you see me being too direct, call me out. If you feel like I'm not being empathetic enough, let me know, right? Like I can offer up that safe space to allow individuals to point that out to me. So that in turn is also going to help with that self-awareness piece. And then the more it's like, the more you shine the flashlight on it, the more you're going to recognize. So reflect, write it down, keep track of your learnings. One of my learning is I'm doing this self-awareness journey. And then just keep it going, just like confidence. It's like a snowball that as it rolls downhill, it picks up the flakes and gets bigger and bigger. It's the same idea. So keep that going. It will help with the self-awareness piece. Okay, tactical takeaways to improve. I mean, we're talking about so many different skills here that it's really hard to get super tactical. We do have a number of free resources that we can provide. My biggest suggestion would be two things. One, if you are thinking about kind of, if you see the advantages that coaching could have to taking this information and growing, just book that consult, because then you'll get matched with a coach that's really right. And you can actually immediately start working on delegation, risk-taking, confidence, whatever it is, the thing for you. I'm going to drop it in it's in the slides later, and Jill put it in the follow-up. I'm also doing just a quick touch base meeting. I think it's tomorrow. We'll see it on the slides when it comes up. I'll give you the link, where it'll just be like an open dialogue where you can sit down with me and ask me some questions around like, what is leadership coaching? What would it even do? If I need to work on delegation, what's the type of stuff we would talk about? What would that look like? How am I going to learn? What tools and resources am I going to get? Like, it's just a free, like open, it's not, I mean, like literally it's open to 20 people. So any of you can come and have that conversation with me, and we can get a little bit more into specifics at that time as well. So you'll see that link later, and you can grab some time to have that conversation if you would like to. But think about some other events that we have, other resources we have, free little takeaways. If you have one or two, like you're like, I keep using delegation as an example, I can't resist. But if delegation's like your thing, I need to develop on that. Send me a note, and I will give you like a couple things of what I recommend to get started very specifically, but it's too hard to kind of go at that high brush level, tactical level. I think the biggest takeaway for me, for all of you, if you haven't done this yet, is to do it so that you have that clarity. The second piece is to build your list so that you know what are my strengths and what are my blind spots, and then to have that deep, honest conversation with yourself of, how am I going to work on these things? Can I do this on my own? What does it look like? What's the journey look like? What does it look like? I don't know, so write that down for yourself. And then that third piece being, like I mentioned, do this with your teams, or maybe it's just even like a peer or a friend group, like be flexible to do what's comfortable for you. But it will just generate really good dialogue. I can't believe you're a GSD, or I can't believe you're a people first. Like, is that really a blind spot for you? I feel like you're really good at that. I do too. It'll open dialogue, which is like the best thing that we can do to start creating trust, psychological safety, awareness, emotional intelligence, sort of all of that. It will really perpetuate and generate all of that, including just engaged teams in general, that will lead to all the other really healthy things like high morale and, all this other really, really, really good stuff. Okay, let's see. So Morgan had said confidence. Morgan, we got some good events on confidence as well. So that's definitely another one. Hopefully from a confidence standpoint, even just sort of walking away knowing, is there something in my blind spot that is what's prohibiting me from being confident? I mean, talk about self-awareness right there. Like, you're like, wow, the reason I'm lacking confidence is because, and I'll like click to the next one. Maybe I'm too overwhelmed. Maybe I have imposter syndrome, something like that. So maybe hopefully you're able to draw a little bit of a line today as to what could potentially be impacting your own personal leadership confidence, if it's one or two of these things. Again, that way, okay, now I know a skill that I can work on, develop, and grow that goes on my little list. Okay, and then I'm just skimming through this list as quickly as I can here. I want to be a better leader with purpose and able to share vision. So I think this is, Blanca, I think it's great. It's funny you said I want to be a better leader, because remember I used that example of how people come to us. I just want to be a better leader, but you gave me the with. So good call on that. Purpose, better able to share a vision. So when you think about, I think you were a GSDer, but I forgive me if I got that wrong. That was just my quick visual. When you think about those strengths and blind spots, what do you need to be more focused on and able to communicate that purpose and that vision a little bit better? Like, this type of thing. Is it about the communication of it? Is it about knowing what it is? Is it about knowing what the other people on your team are and how you will adapt to their communication style? Are you communicating it and they're not hearing it? So you need to be thinking about, am I communicating it poorly? Is that on me? Is it really about them not understanding, or do I have an opportunity to improve or change that communication? So lots of opportunity there of things that we could be digging into a little bit as well. Linda specifically was mentioning adapting styles to different situations. I think this is a really good point. Like, these were just those two super high level to get us thinking about skills and blind spots. But even if you went out and you kind of said, oh, what all leadership styles are there? I mean, there's so many, and there's so many different interpretations of, what they all are. I do strongly feel like our styles, just like our strengths and skills, change pretty drastically based off of the role that we're in, how much pressure is on us, the company we work at. Think about, like, if any of you ever done like a DISC assessment in the past, where you a D once and then an I another time, like, what was occurring that had that changing for you? So drawing sort of that, again, that awareness just to that, when are the times when I've noticed that my style has been different over time? What was impacting that? Having that awareness to that will really allow you to kind of take that step back too and go, okay, so how can I adapt or adjust quicker when I need to in certain situations? Or I do this with my team. I'm people first, they're all GSD. How do I adapt? Or we're all different. How do we create a common dialogue with each other so that we know how to safely raise a hand, so that we know how to draw attention to your people first is coming a little bit too much in here, and we actually need to, like, get some things done. Like, what is that way that you can create that safe space so that everyone can adapt themselves even a lot easier? So something to think about that way. Again, it just kind of goes back to this awareness thing. So, like, the more we know, the better off we are. So the more people around you can have do this, you can open up the conversation, and it gives that freedom and gives that trust and that psychological safety. Okay, so I could probably go on for days and days. There were other specific tactics and things in there that individuals wanted to hear more about, like empathy. We have some good trainings and webinars on that. Those are also good things that we could have conversations with coaches on. I wrote a really good article. Well, I'm selfish. Listen to me, my GSD, I'm just like, my confidence is like sky high right now. I swear it is good. On vulnerability the other day, because I feel like it's a little bit of a taboo topic for some people. Like, some people first leaders are like, oh yeah, vulnerability is great. And then some GSDs are like, what the heck? Why would it? No, like, I'm not crying. And I promise it has nothing to do with crying. But consuming these types of resources can be helpful because it's drawing awareness to what is this skill. Like, I'm using vulnerability in this case as an example. What is vulnerability? And then how do I apply it within my own self and my situation and my work? And it's very specific. So we don't have that in the follow-up, but if you go to our blog, I'm almost positive it's one of the last two written, but it's on vulnerability. You can even just search on that. It's a really good one. I recommend reading that just to kind of see. It's another one sort of like, does this resonate with me? Type of thing, what can I do out of this list of things suggested? What would make sense for me? How can I be a little bit, more vulnerable? I just want to say in general, kudos to all of you for dropping in these different sort of things you wanted to learn about today, things you want to talk about today. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. So if you don't feel like you got it addressed, we can find ways to address it. Okay, anyone resonate with my little unsure list, feeling a little bit lost, imposter syndrome, want a seat at the table, growth is maybe not valued, feeling risk averse, lacking confidence, fear of failure, distrust, overwhelm? Anyone want to fess up to that? And it's okay if you're not comfortable. I can tell you it's a psychologically safe space, but I could say that all day long. You still have to feel like it is. So, and no one may be feeling this way too. So totally okay if that's not the case. But this is tough. This happens sometimes just when we're just no longer happy, in a job situation, or we have, let's be real, a really bad boss. Like, sometimes that happens and we just have like a really, really, really bad boss. And that's when some of this stuff can come in. So you could go from a good situation to a bad situation. You could be doing the exact same job. You could be providing the same value, but your boss changes and like all of this happens, right? So that's the time where it's really hard, when you have to say, I'm standing on the ground and I'm drawing a circle around myself. And what are the things I can control? What are the things I can control? What are the steps that I can take? And sometimes that's hard, but that's the approach when we're in those really unsafe, unfun, unpleasant situations. Okay, so I've probably mentioned some of these next steps 5,000 times, but if you have not taken the assessment, take it. Get your teams to take it. Have conversation about it. Get your best friend to take it. Do they agree, disagree? If for some reason you didn't get your results, email me. I will get you a copy. Identify your own strengths and blind spots. We gave you some. We talked about a lot of different stuff here. You could go on our website and read different blog articles and watch past events and all this great stuff. But what's your list? What's your list look like? You could go Google, what are the best leadership strengths? What are the best skills and traits a leader should have? But that list might not resonate with you personally. So what from there would you call to be a strength for you, and what is a blind spot for you that you really need to focus on? And then next, kind of really just being, how do you develop those skills? How do you leverage the ones that you have, and how do you improve the blind spots or leverage the strengths to overcome the blind spots where you can? Practice, 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 practice over and over and over again. I say that over and over and over again. Pull that list out repeatedly, review it repeatedly. Where am I at? Reflect, practice, practice, practice. Create the long-term habits. So it's one thing to say, I get to use the delegation example again. I want to be a better delegator, to read a book on it, to go to one of these trainings and learn about it. But what am I actually doing about it? And who's holding me accountable to achieving those tasks and actions? Who is asking the tough questions to confirm that I actually did what I said I was going to do? I can't tell you how many times I have asked a client, do you provide good feedback? Knowing it's a bad question. And oh, of course I do. But then we get into the good questions. I say, tell me the last time you provided someone feedback. Oh, well, I think it was last week. Tell me exactly what you said. Oh, I don't have a clue, and we get deeper and deeper and deeper. So are you asking yourself surface level questions and making assumptions that you're good enough and moving forward? Or what are you doing to get yourself to that next level and have that accountability partner, that coach, that friend, that manager, like who is supporting you on your growth and development beyond just taking a training and into that long-term growth and habit? Okay, so I want to just flash up a couple things real quick. I told you I was going to give you that link to where we're just going to have a chat and you can chat with me. I'm excited for that. Hopefully a lot of you take advantage of that. Here are some of the companies that we have worked with in the past. A couple of you had mentioned these companies before, so you're in good company. Frameworks we've mentioned, but I think this is good as you're sitting here making your list, right? Those of you who are making your list of your skills and your blind spots, these are some of the topics that are commonly covered. Read this, skim this really quick. What stands out for you that you need to maybe get a little bit more on? Do you ask really good, deep, powerful questions, or do you ask yes, no questions? Do you understand emotional intelligence to the level you need to understand it? How empathetic are you being? Do you know what the ladder of inference is and how it impacts you and your team on a daily basis? Because it's painful. Are you above the line or below the line with your thinking and your framework and your conversation? So there's a lot of things that we can really dive into to tailor and craft a development experience that's for you. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, here it is. Okay, see, I couldn't remember what the date was, but there it is, 6/24. Today is the 23rd. So tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central, random time I chose. Please, if you're interested, attend a Q&A session. It's really, I'm just calling it What's Leadership Coaching. It's open to 20 humans. So if you want to come, please do. You can register right here in the bit.ly, and it's case sensitive, so lowercase y-coach. And it'll just be me and whoever else shows up. I'll answer any questions that you have. I'll give you examples, like whatever would be helpful. If you come to this, it's the intent of learning about leadership coaching specifically. So please join if that's what you want to know about. If you're trying to be coached, instead, I recommend starting with a consult where we'll match you with a coach that you can work with going forward. And that would be this one over here, the bit.ly Leader Convo, just to make sure you're sort of in the right place at the right time. I don't want you to be confused. And I have, as you know, put up the offer many times today. If you have one-off little questions or you're curious or you want your results, your assessment information, please do email me. I'd be happy to provide that to you. If you are not on our Leadership Lunch and Learn weekly email, and you would like to be on that, send me a note. I'll send you the link to subscribe to that as well. One just went out today where I was also offering what I was calling crew calls, and they're really just kind of like networking and a little bit of group coaching. So that went out as a free opportunity in that email. So that's a good email to be on as well, so you can kind of take advantage of deals and random stuff and really good information when it comes up. Okay, but I am going to stop talking. Well, no, I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to open it up to you to ask any questions that you want to ask. It's Jennifer at alvcoaching.com if I could type for my email. Please do, don't hesitate to email me. Anyone have any last questions that we really just did not get to? Especially as it relates to the leadership styles, as it relates to your strengths / skills / blind spots, if there is any confusion around any of that. Oh, and I just realized I didn't send that to the whole group. So let me redo this in the chat here, everyone. There we go. Okay, so there's my email. Okay, so I'm just going to skim up here. Please do drop questions in. It's question time. I'm happy to answer them. I want to make sure you kind of really get the maximum as you can out of all of this. Oh, good. Jill put in a link. She's hosting a webinar on confidence next week on imposter syndrome, excuse me. And Jill's webinars on imposter syndrome are fantastic. That is a do not miss. So please register for that if you haven't. Psychological safety comes to mind in reading the unsure slide. Yeah, I know that's a tough one. I actually think psychological safety it's tough because like for example, when I had that unsure slide, remember what I said was, I could tell you this is a psychologically safe environment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is, right? So you might feel like Jen's a nice person, but maybe we don't have trust yet. You don't know me. So what makes you want to go and comment or answer that? And how many times have you been in a meeting like that where like the manager says, this is a trusting, safe space? And what's the stuff that goes through your head when that's said? Well, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it is for other people. Maybe it's not for you. Or maybe you trust everyone in the room, including your boss, except for Bob sitting right next to you. So who's going to speak up because Bob's going to, mentally attack me or something, right? So that's a tough one. That psychological safety one really is tough. So really digging into crafting a plan to building trust that works for you and your team, and on that one-on-one level, and then facilitating it between others. Oh my gosh, that is probably even the hardest part. Like, what happens if you have 2 employees who lack trust? I mean, we coach people on that collectively all the time. It's tough. It's really tough. Okay, question. Role a person's culture plays in these 2 examples. So very, very, very good question. We work with people all over the world, and I will confidently say that culture plays a big impact on leadership. But here's the but. I think that's also influenced a lot. It's not only influenced by the culture, but also by the company as well. Because the reason I say that is because, for example, I work with a number of clients in Mexico, and they all work at different companies. And what they bring forward as their challenges and the things that we work on are completely different from company to company. Now, all of them have some similar things. For example, I worked with 2 of these individuals said, I have an employee who's just says yes to everything. And that's a little bit the culture, like just says yes, doesn't want to let me down, and is very proud for that, but then has a really hard time following through and executing. So are we going to necessarily change that person's style and saying yes? Maybe not. We might not. But how can we set that individual up for success? What does it look like to level set expectations, to follow up better, to have regular check-ins, to discuss and provide 2-way feedback when things aren't going right? So how do you adapt, right, to that person, that situation? So from a style perspective, most likely you're either going to resonate with those strengths and blind spots, regardless of the header that's on the style top, and you'll probably lean more toward one direction or the other, unless you truly are someone who's central into both. But the problems your team has that you need to focus on, and the problems that others have that you need to focus on, might just look a little bit different. So that's where that kind of adaption comes in, and really understanding mental models, and how everyone shows up a little bit differently and how we adjust. So good question. And that's why I give like the big but. It's like sort of, but there's always a caveat to that. On culture, remind me that a person's intersectionality, various categories play a role. Yeah. No, thank you, Alfred. It's a great point. And I think we'll continue to see the culture thing come into play, frankly, in new ways too, even just because of the virtual versus in office versus hybrid. I realize as I'm saying this, like, I'm not talking culturally across the world necessarily, though, gosh, we can work with people from anywhere. So that is going to always be in play. But there are going to be things culturally within organizations that will even just start to change so much, because I'm in the hybrid role, Sally's in the work from home role, Bob's in the office role. How do we interact? What does that change in our work style? How we show up, how we communicate, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be fascinatingly complex. Okay, so Nicole asks, do you have a good book recommendation that goes into more details on leadership styles by chance? So I would say my quick answer is no. It doesn't mean one doesn't exist, just not one that I personally have liked on leadership styles. What I prefer when it comes to leadership styles myself is to get a little bit deeper on a style that I'm interested in being more aligned with, and then going in to read up on that. You won't find that related to our two Amala Vita ones here, but for example, I have a strong liking and follow to servant leadership, so I will read books on servant leadership, this type of thing. So I don't know if that kind of is a little bit helpful. In addition to this is like a no-brainer, obvious, but the skills. So like I've got probably 3 books on my bookshelf specifically on emotional intelligence, that type of thing. Styles, not as much, but I will say you could even just Google what's my leadership style, free survey or free quiz or something like that, and you'll get quite a few different fun options to take. And that's fun to take them all and kind of compare and see what you learn. Or do they give you other skills that go onto your skill list of things to develop and grow? Morgan, yes, this is recorded. It will be on the YouTube channel. If not the end of the week, maybe next week. You can go find all of our past recordings out there for sure. Alfred, thank you. Groupie. We like our groupies. Okay, well, it's 2:00. We're here. How we did it again, I don't know. It flies by. Please join me in the Y Coach meeting if you would like to ask questions there. If you're just ready to rock, go for the leader convo, have that consult. They'll match you up with the perfect coach. If you have one-off little questions, you can email me. The YouTube link may or may not be in the follow-up email, because I asked Jill to get that email out really quickly, but I promise it is on the Amala Vita YouTube channel. So even if you go next week, it'll be there shining and waiting for you on the channel, along with, oh my gosh, I don't even know, Jill, like 40 other really great trainings.
A lot.
Crazy.
A lot. We have a lot of webinars up there. So definitely check out, our YouTube channel, because there's a lot of good stuff there.
I try to be good, and these were someone's like, oh, confidence, or oh, this, and I like, we have a training for that. And I'm like, I can't give Jill like 500 trainings to send people. So just go to the channel and find them, and you'll love them. Lots of good content you can use for yourself and your teams. Okay, so I am expecting a flood of emails from people who had follow-up questions. I'm expecting at least 20 of you on the Q&A session. Hopefully, yes. A couple of you jumped right in for the convo. You'll get the follow-up from Jill, and then those of you who haven't completed the assessment will do so, and I'll see a flood of those responses in my inbox too. So I'm going to have just hundreds of emails when we're off this call, right, Jill?
Absolutely. I can't wait. Oh, there you go.
Yay.
Blanca already has her consult
scheduled.
scheduled.
To hear. And if you have any
Amazing.
questions to Blanca after you have your session, you're welcome to send me a note. But you're in good hands. They're experts. They know who to pair you with perfectly. So great. Katie, I'm sure enjoyed it. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. And those of you who are new, welcome to the circle. Come back and join us again for something in the future. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jen.